Everybody loves a story about an underdog.
Someone out of the ordinary.
Rising from nothing to overthrow a crappy government and change the narrative. Someone who places their country's needs ahead of their own. I'm sorry to tell you, this is not one of those stories. This is a story of a president who tasted power once and grabbed to it tightly, doing anything to remain in power. From rigging elections to executing anyone he suspected of trying to depose him from power. This man went as far as executing young Ghanaians traveling to Europe through the back way because he believed they were a threat to his rule. Jammeh faced multiple coup attempts throughout his time. Many Gambians believe Jammeh will be president forever. But in 2016, all his plans came crashing down when his own soldiers turned against him and political leaders risking their life to demonstrate for fair elections. To truly understand the event of 2016, we need to travel way back to 1994. In 1994, the political landscape of the Gambia underwent a significant changes as President Sadauda Kairaba Jawara was successfully overthrown. The members of the coup plotters have a meeting about who will be chosen as the temporary head of state. Yahya Jammeh emerged as the chosen leader. The citizens were left wondering the nation's future. Jammeh addressed the nation via live television, declaring that
this is a coup with change. The country would be returned to civilian rule as soon as we have set things right.
And surprisingly, Jammeh stands by his word. Jammeh initiated investigations into the previous government, revealing ministerial embezzlement. During the process, he placed some ministers under house arrest.
You have to remember that Jawara has been here for 30 years. For 30 years, he has been a special friend of the British authorities. He spends most of his time in Britain playing golf at the expense of the Gambian state. He has assets in Britain, and our investigations into corruption have shown that most of the money stolen from the Gambian coffers are deposited in British banks. The setting up of the Crude Oil Commission has sparked up this reaction. We understand the reasons why. We want to make sure that by the time we leave, there are concrete structures that will let Gambians know their rights as Gambians, rights that cannot be denied by anybody who comes after us. And for 30 years, there has been no development. The government did not build a single hospital. The government did not build even a single school, be it primary or much more high school. The roads are terrible, you have seen them.
What? Our grandparents stealing public funds? I guess it runs in the blood.
The check was not withdrawn.
Why?
Because I later understand there is no fund.
There is no
Fund in the account.
fund in the account.
Yes, by then.
But you would have known.
Yes.
No, you would have known that there was no fund in the account before you sent in a check.
Just few months into his role as a temporary president, a coup attempt struck against Jammeh. These were not actually coup attacks. They actually manipulated the news and make it seem like it is a coup attack. In reality, these were just suspects. Jammeh don't take risks. If you are a suspect or his soldiers heard rumors, they execute, period. They were arrested and
they were tied.
Hands behind their back.
Hands behind the back.
And then what happened? They dropped down?
And then they dropped down, taken to for a distance in front of us. We and the council members, I was part of them. Council members with their orderly, we line up and facing them.
Were the captured soldiers facing you, or did they have their backs to you?
They are giving us their back.
And they were grouped together, or they were standing in a line?
It's like a form of an extended line. Sana Sabal said, say your last prayers.
What happened after that? After the conversation, say your last prayers.
Sana gave order of fire.
And what happened?
And we fire on them.
Once bloodshed in the Smiling Coast, they began to get comfortable with violence, quoting directly from one of the soldiers.
The best form of defense is by attacking.
Because the major donor of foreign aid to the Gambia suspended their AIDS program, except the country has returned to civil rule, and Jammeh is getting comfortable in his position. But he made a promise to the Gambians.
This is a coup with change. The country would be returned to civilian rule as soon as we have set things right.
Jammeh started to think about running for an elections. Jammeh realized young Gambians loved him. They were fed up with the old government, which ruled for 30 years but has no impact in the nation. Because young people loved him, he lowered the voting age from 21 to 18, which he did legally, allowing votes to be made on it. 70% of the votes agreed. Jammeh was still not comfortable about winning the national election. I mean, Jammeh is young, and his whole career is at stake. In order to stand for president, he needed to retire. And if he loses the election, the next government will not want him near them. Jammeh knew he needed to add the odds of winning the elections. What did he do? Ban some of the opposition parties. Jammeh stuck to his promise by becoming a civilian. He retired from the army as a captain a month before the presidential elections. It was Sunday, September 29, 1996. Gambia voted for Jammeh, who won with 56% of the votes, between Ousainou Darboe, Hamad Bah, and Sidiya Jatta.
Why shouldn't we go out? If we are to die, let us also die.
Jammeh started out with impressive momentum. In just a couple of years as a president, he constructed 2 new high schools, 5 new middle schools, a large rural hospital, several rural clinics, and the country's first television station. Gambians admired him.
Obviously, the mantra of the military junta at the time was transparency, probity, and tranquility. So this was something that resonated with everybody.
Fighting corruption, fighting nepotism, fighting Africa's disintegration.
During the 2 years of Jammeh, the first year, we are part of the guys who were really supporting him at the time because we wanted change.
Fast forward a couple years later, the year 2001, and it was time for another presidential elections. Gambians still believed they had hit the jackpot, thinking they had the best damn president in Africa. Jammeh secured the victory with 53% and Ousainou Darboe came close in the race. They promptly informed President Jammeh, who immediately flew back to the country. Upon his return, he ordered his junglers to eliminate the passive threat.
And Suleiman Sambo was driving the vehicle.
And Durcham?
Durcham sindi tema.
Durcham, we sat him in the middle. He asked me, where are we going to? I said to him, I do not even know. Myself, I don't know where we are going to. So when we took a bend and headed towards Brikama, Captain Modu Jaju, He brought out 4 plastic bags.
Adi Malik Mangala.
He gave them to Malik Manga. We were the ones behind, and he said to us, finish him. Mali put the plastic bag over the head of Ndur Cham.
At this time, what was happening to Ndur Cham's hands?
At that time, his hands were handcuffed behind his back.
Proceed, please.
Council, continue.
When he put those plastic bags over the head of Ndur Cham, I also joined them.
With the help of Rambo.
With the help of Rambo. Rambo helped us.
And Ndur Cham suffocate.
And we suffocated Ndur Cham to death.
There are 2 things Jammeh is really genius about. He knew the only way he could be removed from power is by his soldiers deposing him. So he became friends with his soldiers, frequently slaughtering cows with his soldiers. And in return, his soldiers were loyal to him because he believed he will never lose any elections if his plan goes right. It was September 22nd, 2006, time for another presidential election. Jammeh emerged victorious with 63.3% of the votes, being declared as the winner, while the opposition candidate Ousainou Darboe finishes second. 5 years later, in the 2011 presidential election, Jammeh secured another win with 72% of the vote, with Ousainou Darboe again finishing second in the race. But these elections were not legit. Of course, the numbers don't add up. It doesn't make sense.
Handing voting cards to foreigners.
Jammeh has 2 techniques of rigging the votes. Jammeh will send dozens of buses into his village in Senegal, Casamance, fill up the buses and sneak them into the country, give them voters cards, and voila, he wins the elections. The other technique is after everyone in the Gambia has voted, all the votes will be taken to one central location for counting. Guess which people transports the votes? His puppets. And voila, he easily wins the elections. There were these individuals who believed they could overthrow President Jammeh and began planning a coup in 2011. This plan took 3 years to execute, and on December 30th, 2014, they deemed it strong enough to proceed. A group of naturalized Americans from the Gambia entered the country through the Senegalese border, with cars filled with guns hidden in the barrels, accompanied by a group of up to 12 people. Once they arrived at the State House, their plan involved assaulting the main gate with their car, while the remaining 6 individuals will enter through the back. The team at the back fired a shot, hoping that soldiers would surrender. To their surprise, Jammeh's loyal soldiers did not give up. In fact, they started killing the attackers. Realizing the unsuccessful nature of the attack, some escaped while others were arrested. Those who managed to escape entered Senegal and reported their situation to the American embassy. The embassy in turn reported the matter to the US authority. Jammeh believed that the US FBI agents were involved in the coup attempt. When the FBI agents arrived in the Gambia to investigate the matter, the FBI agents interviewed the captured Americans, examined their computers, and reviewed their financial, travel, and phone records. The evidence helped the agents to piece together the conspiracy. The coup was planned by Gambians, a member of the Gambian diaspora who had formed the Gambian Freedom League. The plan was hatched in 2012 to overthrow the president, involving Gambians living in America, Europe, and Africa. The arrested group faced prosecution in the US, spending only 1 year in prison. They were lucky to be American citizens. If not, The second thing Jammeh is so genius about is understanding the importance of branding. Jammeh essentially controls the state TV, showcasing only the positive aspect of his actions and featuring praise songs about him. During that time, if you wanted your song to gain popularity, praise Jammeh in your song. Almost all the journalists consistently portrays positive aspect of Jammeh, but some radio stations dare to criticize his actions. Jammeh soldiers will start by sending a letter. Sometimes, Jammeh's threats were followed with deadly actions, as seen with a journalist who started his show by saying,
"Good morning, Mr. President."
Then highlights everything Jammeh is doing wrong in the nation. The journalist was shot while returning home from work. Similar incidents occurred with other journalists, leading many journalists to seek exile because they feel unsafe. Another incident unfolded when an employee of the Daily Observer was arrested by state security for attempting to publish a critical BBC report about Jammeh. Jammeh's insecurity grew to an extent he arrested more than 30 Ghanaians who were traveling to Europe through Barclay. He asked his junglers to arrest them, and he claimed,
When we arrived at the ground, Solo said these people are mercenaries. The order from the head of state, the former president Yahya Jammeh, is they are all to be executed. Once that we used these two vehicles, and we put these people behind the vehicles. They were sitting, facing the outskirts, and somebody will also come and sit in between your laps. That is how they were sitting. I think they were almost 30. It was not specific to what was to happen to these Ghanaians.
So your group, from where in Banjul did they pick the Ghanaians up?
It was in Banjul. It was, you see, Coconut resident, Coconut resident, when you pass Coconut resident.
Yes.
There is a wide, and when you turn on your right, there is this tall white building. It's where we picked them from. They were being secured by the paramilitaries.
PRU?
PRU, yes.
So you picked them up, you put them in two vehicles, correct?
Yes, correct.
You said about 30 of them.
Correct.
And tell us what happened after that.
We headed to Kanilai.
What happened when you arrived?
When we drove to Kanilai, we went behind the fence of the former president Yahya Jammeh. We headed to Casamas.
Were you told what you were going to do?
At the time, no. Until we arrived at the ground.
Where was this ground you were referring to? Was it in Gambia or in Casamas?
In Casamas. It was in Casamas.
We
arrived at this place. Solo stops. We all come down. Sanamanjang, Malik Jada. We are standing a distance where the well was. You will bring the person up to the well. They will fire at him, and he will fall into the well.
2016.
2016.
2016 is a historical year for the Gambia. In this year, every plan of Jammeh was dismantled, and in that process, some brave Gambians risked their life to make it happen.
On the 14th of April 2016, Solo organizes a public rally protesting for electoral reform.
But immediately Jammeh sent his soldiers to stop the demonstration by throwing tear gases and hitting people. Solo was arrested with other members of the demonstration.
I just come right at the window. I asked him, Solo, are you arrested? He just looked at my eyes and said, yes, I'm arrested. He said it, that these people, they wanted to kill me. You can go and write. This is what Solo Sandeng said from his mouth.
Solo was tortured until he passed away.
He'd been buried in a secret shallow grave.
Party leader Ousainou Darboe, who wrote the political journey with Jammeh from the beginning, also risked it all.
Why shouldn't we go out? If we are to die, let us also die.
Ousainou went out with his die-hard fans to also demonstrate, knowing that things will probably not end well.
Just then, they started beating us. They started hitting us with rifle bullets, with batons, and then it got wild.
I saw them started firing tear gases, while the other protesters and the other people were also stoning them.
We were also arrested. I still feel the pain here because I was winked off from the truck. I fell down and they kicked me.
Major opposition leader in prison, and it's few months before the elections. Jammeh made about 300,000 fake votes. I remember at the time, there were just 900,000 registered votes. So basically, he has won the election before it starts. But things didn't go as planned. His soldiers turned against him.
I have to protect my identity because still now, I feel I'm not 100% safe in the country.
Jammeh's bodyguards knew where the fake voters' cards were hidden, so at night they risked it all to do this.
With less than 4 months to go before the election, the bodyguards drove to the ruling party's headquarters. 4 of the plotters approached the guard posted at the entrance.
We told him to shut up, and if he made any noise, we would kill him. We held him down, tore his clothes, and then tied him up.
Another 2 bodyguards broke into the building and set fire to the fake voting cards. All 300,000 of them.
Very brave. It was risky.
If they were caught there, that was just summary execution. No doubt about that. That changed everything. And it happened shortly before the election, so it happened at a time when registrations for voters' cards had already concluded. You cannot restart it again.
Because of the demonstration, there is no traveling the votes to one central location for counting. Instead, it's on the spot counting. And then a new problem arises. Who is going to stand against Jammeh? Because the political leader, Ousainou Darboe, is still in prison.
In October, the different rival opposition parties met to decide if Barrow should become an independent presidential candidate who could unite the opposition.
Your commitment to this opposition unity is overwhelming. Your belief that Yahya Jammeh has to go. You are on the right side of history, Antifatmata Tambajang.
Adama Barrow was an unlikely candidate. Having once worked as a security guard in London and an estate agent in Gambia, he had little political experience. Yet Barrow's anonymity soon became his greatest asset.
Barrow was a clean slate. He was someone that was never known on the political scene. So I think it was easy for everyone to bet that they could have some sort of influence or control over him.
And Adama Barrow, 308 votes.
I never even think of becoming a candidate or contesting as a presidential candidate. I never thought if I will work for government. I've always been private.
Adama Barrow agreed with party leaders. If he won the elections, he will only stay in power for 3 years.
Gambians are already tired of 22 years of Yahya Jammeh's misrule. And this year, by the grace of Allah, we shall end this misrule. Long live the coalition and long live Gambia.
And the campaign began.
I'm going to kill many people in this country.
The support was there. People were ready. There was no doubt in my mind with that crowd going to make a difference.
There was this divine feeling. You would feel that there's no way how God would leave Gambia in the hands of Jammeh this time around.
Finally, it was time for Gambians to go to the polls. Yet, despite all the progress made by the opposition, many still feared that Jammeh would win.
It got into people's mindset that it was going to be impossible to remove Jammeh. So some people even believed that it was a waste of time or waste of votes voting for the opposition.
By the grace of the Almighty Allah, I've had the biggest landslide in the history of my elections in this country. Thank you.
Does not happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's like, is it real that you are able to defeat Jammeh? Because psychologically, we feel that we cannot do it. That's what everybody thought.
And then after 22 years,
I hereby declare Adama Barrow duly elected to serve as President of the Republic of the Gambia.
That was the first time an opposition leader won elections. That was the first time it happened in this country after 52 years.
New year, new style, new president, new life. This is the Gambia having their freedom. This is the freedom for our youth.
all this time, Ousseynou Dabo was still locked in jail. He was not being able to vote.
I couldn't believe it. And then the main yard where you have the other convicts, they were banging their door. The doors of their cells, and the other side of the maximum security, cell number 4, they were also banging their door. And I came to know, well, this is true.
After all the celebrations, Gambia was quiet and listening to Jammeh.
I'm calling you to wish you all the best. The Gambian people have spoken, and I have no reason to contest the will of the Almighty Allah. Hello? Are you hearing me?
It was unbelievable. It was just completely out of Jammeh's character. This wasn't Jammeh.
Gambians were astounded when Barrow left open the possibility of asking the outgoing president for advice.
And inshallah, if we need any advice, in any area we will always consult you.
Thank you. Though I'll be a farmer in Kanilai.
This is politics. This is diplomacy. This is diplomacy, so you have to use diplomatic language. But definitely, I don't mean that.
Just 1 week later, Jammeh made an announcement.
I hereby announce to you Gambians my total rejection of the electoral results and thereby annulling the elections in its entirety, and until we will go back to the polls, because I want to make sure that every Gambian has voted. Under an independent electoral commission that is independent, neutral, and free from foreign influence.
Expecting the worst, thousands of Barrow's supporters began to flee the country.
Gambia turned to ECOWAS for help, and ECOWAS warned Jammeh to step down and gave him a deadline on the 19th of January. Jammeh said no. The African Union additionally stated that it will stop recognizing Jammeh as president as of 19 January 2017. On the 19th of January, the deadline came. Jammeh was still rejecting the elections. He claimed the election needed to be repeated.
ECOWAS's patience finally ran out. On the 19th of January 2017, ECOWAS sent military forces to Gambia's border.
Jammeh still in State House. The next day, ECOWAS leaders tried to persuade him to step down during the early hours of 21st January.
Yahya Jammeh greeting Nigerian President Buhari and the heads of states of Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Banjul on Friday morning. A small crowd of Jammeh supporters were brought in by bus for the occasion. Behind closed doors, they held talks trying to convince him to peacefully hand over power. Nigeria has even offered him asylum. But after hours of discussion, when the Nigerian president was asked if Jammeh will step down, Buhari answered, "God only knows."
It was all over.
I have decided today, in good conscience, to relinquish the mantle of leadership of this great nation with infinite gratitude to all Gambians.
Within hours, Jammeh was ready for a final send-off. To the music of a ceremonial band, he boarded a plane to seek refuge in Equatorial Guinea. And with Jammeh gone, it was finally time for Gambia's new president to return.
When we came down the plane, it was emotional to see. You could see the welcome, the passion people had.
Long live the Republic. Long live the United People of the Gambia.
The 3 years was a verbal agreement, but in reality, it's not feasible.